Hey there. Have you ever stopped to think about who really runs a country? Who holds the power? It's actually not as simple as one person or one group calling all the shots. Today, we're going to break down this incredible three-part system that forms the backbone of most modern governments. It's a clever design that's all about keeping power balanced.
So, let's think about it. How would you design a government from scratch? How do you build it so it's strong, but not too strong, so it doesn't just collapse or, worse, become a dictatorship? Well, the answer isn't to put all your eggs in one basket. Instead, you build a really carefully balanced structure where different parts have very specific jobs.
And right at the very heart of this whole design is a super powerful idea called the separation of powers. Honestly, you can think of it like a built-in safety feature. The whole point is to slice up the state's power into different pieces or branches so that no one person, no one group can ever get their hands on all of it.
Okay, to make this really click, let's use an analogy. Think back to a group project at school. You always have different roles, right? Maybe one person is the researcher, digging up all the facts. Someone else is the writer, putting it all together. And then you've got the proofreader, who makes sure everything is perfect before you hand it in. See, everyone has a clear job, and the project only works if they all do their part. Well, believe it or not, government works in a very similar way.
All right, so with that in mind, let's meet the first member of our group project.
And that first pillar is the legislature. You can think of these guys as the architects. Their whole job, their entire reason for being, is to design and create the laws that a country runs on.
Now, you've definitely heard of this branch. It's often called a parliament or a congress, and it's made up of people who are elected by us, the public. Their mission is to get in there, debate all the big ideas, draft up proposals or bills, and then vote to turn them into actual laws. So in theory, they're supposed to be our voice, the voice of the people in that whole lawmaking process.
Okay, so making laws is one thing, but that's just step one, right? Who actually takes those laws and puts them into practice? And that question leads us right to our second pillar.
Pillar number 2 is the executive. So if the legislature are the architects drawing up the blueprints, the executive branch, they're the builders. They're the ones who take those laws, take those policies, and actually make them happen. This is the part of government you see in action every single day.
This branch is what most of us just call the government. You've got a prime minister or a president at the top, and then a whole cabinet of ministers running different departments. Health, finance, education, all that stuff. But here's the really crucial link you have to get. The executive is usually formed by the political party that has the most seats, the majority in the legislature. And that's a huge deal. It means they don't just run the country day to day, they also have a massive say in proposing the new laws that the legislature is going to be talking about.
Okay, so we've got the lawmakers, and we've got the people who put the laws into action. But who's the referee? Who makes sure both sides are actually playing by the rules? We need an umpire, and that's where our third and final pillar comes in.
And that third pillar is the judiciary. These are the interpreters. They are the umpires of the whole system. Their job is to look at a law that the legislature created, see how the executive is using it, and then decide if it's being applied fairly and correctly.
Now, if there is one single most important thing to know about the judiciary, it's this: independence. For this whole system to work, for it to have any integrity at all, the courts absolutely cannot be controlled by the politicians making the laws or the government carrying them out. That separation is everything. It's the bedrock of what we call the rule of law. So this pillar is basically all the courts in the country. And yeah, judges are usually appointed by the government, but once they're on the bench, they're expected to be totally independent. Their main job is to interpret the law when there's a dispute and make a decision that everyone has to follow. But here's something cool. Sometimes the way they interpret a law in one case sets a new standard, what's called a precedent, for how all similar cases should be handled from then on. And that's actually how something called common law grows and changes over time.
Okay, let's recap. We have the lawmakers, the government doing the work, and the interpreters making sure it's all fair. So how do these three powerful groups coexist without one just taking over? Well, it all comes down to a brilliant idea: a system of checks and balances.
This chart here really lays it all out beautifully. Just look at the source of power column. It's so important. The legislature's power, that comes straight from us, the people, when we vote. The executive's power, that comes from having a majority in the legislature. And the judiciary, their authority comes from the law itself, from the Constitution. So you see, each branch has a totally different job and a different source of power, which means they're all accountable in different ways. And really, this is the main thing I want you to take away from all this. This whole division of power, it is 100% intentional. It's not an accident. It's a safety mechanism, deliberately designed to stop any one person or any one group from getting too much power and running away with the whole show. It's the ultimate protection against tyranny.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. This whole system, as you can see, is a really delicate balance. So what happens when one of these pillars starts to get a little too strong, a little too powerful? What happens when it starts to dominate the others? You know, that question is right at the center of so many political arguments happening all over the world right now. And knowing how these three pillars are supposed to work, well, that's the first step to figuring out the answer.